The boy sat alone on the wooden bench outside Courtroom 3C, his small hands gripping a manila folder like it was the only solid thing in the world. 11 years old. Wearing clothes from a donation bin that didn't quite fit jeans, an inch too short, a button-down shirt with frayed cuffs. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. And waiting for a judge to decide if he deserved to stay in the only home he'd ever known as safe. His name was Lucas Chen, and he had no idea that 15 miles away, 97 motorcycles were already heading his way. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The hallways smelled like floor polish and old coffee. Every few minutes, someone in a suit would rush past, heels clicking on tile, barely glancing at the small Asian boy with the haunted eyes. Lucas had learned to be invisible. It was safer that way. But today, he needed to be seen. Today, everything was on the line. Lucas Chen had been in the system since he was 4 years old. 7 years, 12 different placements. Some were fine families who meant well, but couldn't handle a traumatized kid who wet the bed and had nightmares. Others were forgettable temporary stops, where he was just another mouth to feed, another check from the state. A few were nightmares he still woke up from, sweating and silent in the dark, remembering locked closets and missed meals and words that hurt worse than fists. His biological parents were ghosts. His mother had been a teenager, overwhelmed and addicted. His father was a name on a birth certificate, nothing more. By the time Lucas was old enough to ask questions, the answers were all buried in sealed case files and the fuzzy memories of social workers who'd moved on to other jobs. He'd stopped hoping for a real family by the time he was 8. Stopped believing that someone would choose him, keep him, love him. But 18 months ago, something changed. He'd been placed with Tom and Sarah Reeves, a couple in their 50s who ran a small automotive repair shop on the edge of town. Reeves and Sons Auto Repair, even though they'd never had sons of their own. The placement was supposed to be temporary. It always was. Just until we find something more permanent, the caseworker had said, the same line Lucas had heard a dozen times before. Tom and Sarah weren't rich. Their house was a small ranch-style home with a sagging front porch and a yard that needed mowing. Inside, it was cluttered with books and tools and mismatched furniture from thrift stores. The kitchen had dated linoleum floors and appliances from the 90s. But for the first time in his life, Lucas felt like he belonged. Tom was a big man with grease permanently under his fingernails and a laugh that rumbled from deep in his chest. He had a gray beard he trimmed once a week and wore coveralls with his name stitched on the pocket. He taught Lucas how to change oil, how to read engine codes, how to hold a wrench properly. He was patient when Lucas made mistakes, never raising his voice, just showing him again and again until Lucas got it right. Sarah was smaller, with silver hair she kept in a bun and reading glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. She'd been a teacher before retiring, and she still had that teacher energy, organized, nurturing, firm when she needed to be. She helped Lucas with homework at the kitchen table every night, patient even when he got frustrated with fractions and wanted to throw his pencil across the room. She taught him how to cook simple meals, scrambled eggs, grilled cheese, spaghetti with sauce from a jar that she'd doctor up with garlic and Italian seasoning. They came to his school plays, even the terrible one where he forgot half his lines as a talking tree in the school's production of The Lorax. They remembered his birthday, his real birthday, not just the date on his file, and threw him a party with a homemade cake and presents wrapped in newspaper comics because Sarah said it was more personal than store-bought paper. They asked him about his day and actually listened to the answers, asking follow-up questions, remembering details he'd mentioned weeks before. Lucas had started calling them Tom and Sarah. At first, careful to maintain the distance he'd learned to keep with every other placement. Then, one night, 6 months in, he'd accidentally said Dad, while asking Tom to pass the salt at dinner. The word had just slipped out. Lucas had frozen, fork halfway to his mouth, terrified he'd crossed some invisible line, terrified they'd send him back for being too attached, too needy, too much. Tom had stopped mid-chew, and for a terrible second, Lucas thought he'd made a huge mistake. Then, Tom's eyes had gone wet and shiny, and he'd smiled, really smiled, the kind that crinkled the corners of his eyes and said, "Yeah, son?" Sarah had reached over and squeezed Lucas's hand, her own eyes brimming with tears. That was the moment Lucas knew he wanted to stay forever. That was the moment he let himself hope. But forever wasn't guaranteed in the foster system, especially when your caseworker decided you'd be better served in a different placement. Especially when budget cuts meant they were consolidating placements and moving kids to larger group homes where economies of scale made the numbers look better on paper. Especially when you were just a file number to people who'd never met you, never saw you, never knew that you'd finally found a place where you weren't invisible anymore. The review hearing was today. Lucas clutched the folder inside were letters. 12 of them. Letters he and Sarah had collected over the past 2 weeks, ever since they'd gotten the notice that the state was recommending his transfer. Letters from Lucas's teachers saying he'd gone from a D student to honor roll. Letters from neighbors describing how Tom had taught Lucas to mow lawns, and how Lucas now helped elderly Mrs. Patterson next door every Saturday morning. Letters from Tom's customers who'd watched Lucas grow from a scared, silent kid into someone who smiled, who helped in the garage, who was learning a trade. A letter from Pastor Mike at the community center where Lucas had started volunteering, serving meals to people even less fortunate than he'd been. Letters saying Lucas was thriving, that he deserved to stay. That Tom and Sarah's home might not have been fancy, but it was filled with the one thing money couldn't buy: real love. But Lucas had learned a long time ago that what you deserved and what you got were rarely the same thing. He'd learned that the system didn't care about love. It cared about checkboxes and budget lines and risk assessments. He'd learned that people like him foster kids, forgotten kids, kids nobody wanted didn't get happy endings. But Tom and Sarah had taught him something else too. They taught him to fight. "You're worth fighting for, buddy," Tom had said last night, putting a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "Don't ever forget that." So Lucas sat on that bench, holding his folder of letters like a shield, and waited for his name to be called. He didn't know that help was coming. He didn't know that 18 months ago, when Tom had first met him, Tom had made a phone call to some old friends. He didn't know that those friends never forgot a promise. And he definitely didn't know that 97 motorcycles were about 10 minutes away. The bailiff finally opened the courtroom door. "Chen case. We're ready." Lucas stood on shaking legs. Tom and Sarah rose beside him, Sarah's hand finding his shoulder, steadying him. Inside, the courtroom felt too cold, too formal, too much like every other place where adults made decisions about Lucas's life without really seeing him. Judge Patricia Hartwell sat behind the bench, reviewing paperwork with the mechanical efficiency of someone who presided over hundreds of these cases. She was in her early 60s, with steel gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. She had the look of someone who'd seen every sad story the system could produce and had learned to maintain professional distance to survive. To her left sat Miss Victoria Chen, no relation to Lucas, despite the shared last name the state caseworker assigned to his file. Victoria was in her early 30s, sharp-suited in bureaucratic gray, and perpetually exhausted. She carried a tablet and a briefcase bulging with files. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She spoke in the clipped, efficient tone of someone managing 42 cases with resources for 20. She wasn't cruel. She was just drowning. And Lucas was one of 42 files she needed to process before the fiscal year ended. On the right side sat Mr. James Hendricks, a state attorney who specialized in child welfare cases. He was younger than Victoria, maybe 28, with perfectly styled hair and a suit that cost more than Tom's monthly mortgage payment. He shuffled papers with the bored efficiency of someone checking boxes on a career ladder. Tom and Sarah sat at the respondents' table with their attorney Linda Martinez, a solo practitioner they'd scraped together $2,000 to hire. She was good, compassionate, but overworked and outgunned by the state's legal machine. Lucas sat between Tom and Sarah, trying to make himself smaller, quieter, invisible again. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Everyone stood as Judge Hartwell settled into her chair. "Please be seated. We're here for the 18-month review hearing in the matter of Lucas Chen, a dependent of the court. Let's proceed." Victoria Chen stood, tablet in hand. "Your Honor, Lucas Chen has been in the Reeves home for 18 months. While the placement has been stable, the state is recommending transfer to Riverside Group Home, effective within 30 days. Tom Reeves, shot to his feet. That's insane. Lucas is doing great with us. Why would you? Mr. Reeves, Judge Hartwell interrupted, her voice neither cruel nor kind, just tired. Please sit down. You'll have your opportunity to speak. Miss Chen, continue. Victoria pulled up a spreadsheet on her tablet, projecting it onto a screen for the court. Riverside is a state-certified facility with professional staff, structured programming, and therapeutic services specifically designed for older foster youth. The Reeves household, while caring, lacks these specialized resources. Linda Martinez stood. Your Honor, with respect, Lucas doesn't need specialized resources. He needs a family. He's thriving with the Reeves. His grades have improved dramatically. He's made friends. He's stable for the first time in his life. Miss Martinez, Victoria said, her voice taking on that bureaucratic patience that made Lucas's stomach hurt. Stability isn't the only factor we consider. We have to think about long-term outcomes. Riverside has educational support, mental health counseling, job training programs. Lucas gets all of that at home. Tom interrupted, standing again despite Judge Hartwell's warning look. I'm teaching him automotive repair. That's a real trade. Sarah helps him with school every night. We got him into counseling at the community center. We're giving him everything he needs. Mr. Reeves, the state attorney, Hendricks, stood with a condescending smile. No one is questioning your intentions. But the reality is that Lucas will age out of the system in 7 years. Riverside specializes in preparing older youth for independent living. They have a structured program with measurable outcomes. Measurable outcomes? Sarah's voice cracked. For the first time, Lucas saw her angry, really angry. You want to talk about outcomes? Lucas couldn't read at grade level when he came to us. Now he's on the honor roll. He had nightmares every night for the first 3 months. Now he sleeps through the night. He didn't trust anyone. Now he calls us Mom and Dad. Judge Hartwell's expression softened slightly at that, but she remained impassive. Mrs. Reeves, I understand this is emotional. Emotional? Tom's voice rose. Your Honor, this isn't just emotional. This is our son. We love him. He loves us. We want to adopt him. We've been trying to adopt him for 6 months, but the state keeps blocking us. Victoria sighed, and for just a moment, Lucas saw the exhaustion break through her professional mask. Your Honor, the Reeves have filed for adoption. Yes. But there are concerns. What concerns? Linda demanded. They passed every home study, every background check, every review. Financial concerns, Hendricks said smoothly, pulling out another document. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves run a small business with inconsistent income. Their home is modest. According to the financial disclosure they filed, their joint income last year was $47,000. That's below the recommended threshold for adoptive parents in this county. Tom's face went red. We own our home outright. No mortgage. We have savings. Lucas has never gone without anything he needs. But adoption is permanent, Hendricks countered. What happens if your business fails? What happens when you're in your 60s and 70s and Lucas is a teenager? Can you afford college? What's your long-term financial plan? Our plan, Sarah said, her voice shaking with anger and tears, is to love our son and support him however we can. That's what parents do. Real parents, Victoria said quietly, and immediately regretted it. The courtroom went silent. Lucas felt like he'd been slapped. Real parents, as if Tom and Sarah weren't real. As if the last 18 months hadn't been real. As if love only counted when it came with a biological connection and a 6-figure income. Judge Hartwell closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering patience. Miss Chen, that was inappropriate. I apologize, Your Honor. I didn't mean. What did you mean? Tom's voice was deadly quiet now. Because it sounded like you're saying we're not good enough. That Lucas deserves better than us. I'm saying, Victoria said, trying to recover, that the state has a responsibility to place children in environments that maximize their opportunities for success. And you don't think we can do that, Sarah said flatly. I think, Hendricks interjected, that Riverside offers resources you simply cannot provide. Professional counselors, peer support, college prep programs funded by state and federal grants. Lucas doesn't want to go to Riverside. Tom's voice finally broke. He wants to stay with us. Doesn't that matter? Doesn't what he wants count for anything? Judge Hartwell looked at Lucas for the first time, really looked at him. Lucas, is that true? You want to stay with Mr. and Mrs. Reeves? Every eye in the courtroom turned to Lucas. He wanted to scream. He wanted to stand up and tell them all that Tom and Sarah were his real parents, that their house was his real home, that he'd rather die than go back into the system. But the words stuck in his throat. 7 years of being moved. 7 years of learning that his opinion didn't matter. 7 years of being told he should be grateful for whatever he got. His voice came out small, broken. Yes, Your Honor. I want to stay. He's 11, Hendricks said dismissively. Children his age can't make informed decisions about their long-term welfare. He's old enough to know where he feels safe. Linda shot back. This isn't about feelings, Victoria said, and Lucas could hear the apology in her voice even as she said the words that would destroy his world. This is about what's best for Lucas in the long term, and the state's professional assessment is that Riverside provides better outcomes. Judge Hartwell reviewed the documents in front of her. She looked at Lucas again, and he saw something in her eyes: sympathy, maybe, or regret, but not enough to change her mind. I'm going to take a 15-minute recess to review all materials, she said. We'll reconvene shortly with my decision. The gavel fell. Lucas felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. The 15-minute recess felt like 15 hours. Lucas sat on the bench in the hallway, Tom on one side, Sarah on the other. Nobody spoke. What was there to say? Sarah held Lucas's hand so tightly it almost hurt, but he didn't pull away. Tom sat with his head in his hands, shoulders shaking slightly. Lucas had seen Tom cry only once before the night Lucas had called him Dad. Now he was crying again, and it was worse because Lucas knew these were tears of helplessness. Linda Martinez paced nearby. Phone pressed to her ear. Trying to reach someone, maybe another attorney, maybe a supervisor, anyone who could help. But Lucas knew the truth. He'd been in the system long enough to know. The state always won. Kids like him didn't get happy endings. He pulled out the folder of letters, the ones he'd brought to show the judge. 12 letters from people who knew him, who'd watched him transform from a scared, silent kid into someone with hope. They hadn't even let him present them. What was the point? The judge didn't care about letters. She cared about budget reports and risk assessments and measurable outcomes. Victoria Chen walked past, heading to the bathroom. She saw Lucas and paused, guilt flickering across her face. Lucas, she started, her voice softer than it had been in the courtroom. I know this is hard, but Riverside is a good place. They'll take care of you. Lucas looked up at her with eyes older than 11. I don't want to be taken care of. I want my family. Victoria flinched. I'm sorry. I really am. But I have 42 cases. I have to make decisions based on policy and best practices. If I made exceptions for every what? Sarah stood up, her teacher voice coming out in full force. Every child who finally found people who love him? Every kid who's actually happy for once? Mrs. Reeves, please understand. No, you understand. Sarah's voice shook. I've been a teacher for 30 years. I've seen hundreds of kids. I know what trauma looks like. I know what healing looks like. Lucas is healing, and you want to rip him away from that because your spreadsheet says so. Victoria's professional mask cracked. Just for a second, Lucas saw the exhaustion underneath, the guilt, the knowledge that she was part of a broken system she couldn't fix. I don't make the rules, she said quietly. I just follow them. She walked away. Tom stood and wrapped his arms around both Lucas and Sarah, pulling them close. We're not giving up, he said fiercely. We'll appeal. We'll fight this all the way. But Lucas could hear the defeat in his voice. That's when they heard it. At first, it was just a low rumble in the distance, like thunder on a clear day. Then, it grew louder, deeper. The kind of sound that made windows rattle and hearts skip. Victoria came back from the bathroom, frowning. What is that? The bailiff walked to the window at the end of the hallway and looked out. His eyes went wide. Judge Hartwell needs to see this, he muttered, pulling out his radio. Tom stood up, moving to the window. His expression changed instantly from despair to something else. Hope. They came, he whispered. Oh my God! They actually came. Sarah rushed to the window. Her hand flew to her mouth. Lucas slid off the bench and joined them, peering through the glass at the courthouse parking lot below. Motorcycles. Dozens of them. No more than dozens. They rolled into the parking lot in formation, chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun, engines rumbling like thunder, one after another after another. Black leather. American flags. A patch Lucas couldn't quite see from this distance, something with wings. The bikers parked in perfect rows, military precision. Engines, cut off one by one, but the rumble seemed to hang in the air like a promise. Then they dismounted, and they started walking toward the courthouse. Lucas counted frantically. 20, 40, 60. More. Who are they? Linda asked, joining them at the window. Tom's voice was thick with emotion. Brothers. 20 years ago, Tom Reeves had been a different man. Younger, angrier, lost. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. He'd served 2 tours in Iraq as a combat engineer. Came home with a Purple Heart, shrapnel scars across his back, and PTSD that made sleep impossible and crowds unbearable. He'd tried to adjust to civilian life, but the world felt wrong, too loud, too fast, too safe in ways that made him feel guilty for surviving when his friends hadn't. He'd lost his job at a factory after 3 months. Couldn't handle the routine, the small talk, the pretending. Everything was fine. He'd lost his apartment 6 months later. Couldn't afford rent without steady work. He'd been 2 weeks away from living on the streets when he'd met a group of veterans who rode motorcycles. They called themselves the Iron Riders, a brotherhood of former military who'd found healing on the open road. They'd taken Tom in, taught him to ride, given him purpose again. More than that, they'd given him family when his biological family had given up on him. The club president back then was a man named Marcus Hawk Sullivan, a Marine Corps veteran with a silver beard and eyes that had seen too much but still held kindness. Hawk had gotten Tom into trade school for automotive repair, had helped him apply for VA benefits, had literally shown up at Tom's motel room one night when Tom had a loaded gun and a plan to end all. Hawk had sat with Tom all night, talking about nothing and everything until the sun came up and Tom decided to see one more day. Then another. Then another. The Iron Riders had saved Tom's life. 2 years later, Tom had met Sarah at a community center barbecue the club was sponsoring for local families. She'd been volunteering, serving food, laughing with kids. They'd started dating, got married a year later. Tom had left active riding with the club to focus on building a life, starting his business, buying a house, trying to build something stable. But he'd never forgotten what the Iron Riders had done for him. And when Tom and Sarah had gotten the call 18 months ago about a foster placement, an 11-year-old boy who'd been through 12 homes and was running out of options, Tom had made a phone call. To Hawk. I need you to know about something, Tom had said. About someone. A kid named Lucas. If anything ever happens, if the system tries to take him from us, I need you to remember this conversation. Tell me about him, Hawk had said. And Tom had told him everything. About Lucas's trauma. About his hope. About how Tom and Sarah weren't going to be just another temporary stop. We're going to fight for this kid, Tom had said. We're going to love him the way you guys loved me when I had nothing. Then, we've got your back. Hawk had promised. Always. Now, 18 months later, that promise was being kept. Hawk Sullivan walked through the courthouse doors at the head of 97 Iron Riders. He was in his late 60s now, his beard more silver than gray, but he still carried himself like the Marine he'd been 50 years ago. He wore his leather vest, the one with the Iron Rider's patch on the back. An eagle with spread wings carrying a shield over a clean button-down shirt. Behind him came the rest. Men and women ranging from their 30s to their 70s. Veterans, teachers, mechanics, nurses, small business owners. A few with long gray beards, others clean-shaven. Some covered in tattoos, others without a single mark, but all wearing their colors, all moving with purpose. The courthouse security guard, a young guy named Danny, who'd probably been hired last month, stood frozen at the entrance. Sir, you can't all. Is there some kind of event? Hawk stopped in front of him, calm and respectful. We're here for a hearing. Courtroom 3C, Lucas Chen case. Are you all witnesses? Every single one of us. Danny looked at the sea of leather and chrome behind Hawk. I need to call my supervisor. You do that, Hawk said calmly. We'll wait right here. But that hearing is starting in about 5 minutes, and we're going to be in that courtroom when it does. The supervisor arrived, a heavy-set man named Bill who'd been courthouse security for 20 years. He took one look at the Iron Riders and reached for his radio. This is Bill at entrance. We've got a situation. No situation, Hawk interrupted calmly. Just citizens here to attend a public hearing. That's all right, isn't it? Bill studied Hawk carefully. He'd been in this job long enough to know the difference between a threat and a presence. This was a presence. These hearings are usually closed, Bill said carefully. Usually, Hawk agreed, but not legally required to be. This is a review hearing, not a dependency trial. Unless the judge specifically orders it closed, it's public record. Public hearings. Bill blinked. You a lawyer? No, but I've got 3 lawyers in my club, and they briefed me thoroughly on the drive here. Hawk's expression didn't change. We're not here to cause trouble. We're here to support a kid. That's all. Bill looked at the faces behind Hawk. He saw gray beards and reading glasses. He saw women with their arms crossed, expressions determined but not aggressive. He saw patches that said U.S. Veteran, Semper Fi, Army Strong. These weren't criminals. These were patriots. Keep it orderly, Bill finally said. Any disruption, and you're all out. Yes, sir, Hawk said respectfully. The Iron Riders filed through security in perfect order. They emptied pockets, walked through metal detectors, accepted wanding without complaint. And then, they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Their boots echoed in the marble stairwell like a drumbeat, like an army marching to war. Lucas was still at the window when he saw them enter the building. His heart hammered. Who are they? He whispered again. Tom put his hand on Lucas's shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. They're family, buddy. They're here for us. The bailiff was on his radio now, speaking rapidly. Your Honor, we have a situation. There are approximately, hold on. He turned to Bill, who'd followed the bikers upstairs. How many? 97, Bill said. The bailiff's eyes bulged. 97 individuals requesting entry to Courtroom 3C. Judge Hartwell's voice crackled over the radio. 97 what? Motorcyclists, Your Honor. They say they're here for the Chen hearing. A pause. Then, are they being disruptive? No, Your Honor. They're very orderly, actually. Another pause. I'm coming out. Judge Hartwell emerged from her chambers, still wearing her robes. She walked to the hallway and stopped dead when she saw them. 97 Iron Riders lined the hallway, standing quietly, respectfully. Some had their hands folded in front of them. Others stood at parade, rest military habits dying hard. Not a single person was speaking. It was the quietest crowd of nearly 100 people Judge Hartwell had ever seen. Hawk stepped forward. Your Honor, my name is Marcus Sullivan. We're here to attend the Lucas Chen review hearing. We understand it's a public hearing unless you order otherwise. Judge Hartwell studied him carefully. She'd been a judge for 23 years. She'd seen intimidation tactics before: angry parents, hostile family members, gang affiliations meant to scare or influence. This didn't feel like that. Mr. Sullivan, this is highly irregular. Family court hearings typically have limited attendance. With respect, Your Honor, we checked. Review hearings for non-dependency cases are public unless specifically closed for the child's privacy. We're not asking you to violate any rules. We're exercising our legal right to observe. The judge looked at Victoria Chen, who'd emerged from the courtroom looking pale. Miss Chen, is this some kind of organized protest? I don't know, Your Honor. It's not a protest, Hawk said calmly. It's a showing of support. Tom and Sarah Reeves are our family. Lucas is their son. That makes him our family too. You can't all fit in my courtroom, Judge Hartwell said flatly. Then we'll stand in the back. We'll sit in the hall with the doors open. We'll wait outside. But we're going to be here, Your Honor. Because that boy in there deserves to know he's not alone. Sarah began to cry quietly. Tom's jaw clenched with emotion. Lucas stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Judge Hartwell looked at the faces in front of her. She saw determination, yes, but also something else. Love. These people had dropped everything, left work, rearranged schedules, ridden who knows how many miles to be here for a child most of them had probably never met. Fine, she said finally, but I'm setting ground rules. You will be silent. You will not react to testimony. Any disruption, and you will all be removed. Understood? Yes, Your Honor, Hawk said. Court reconvenes in 5 minutes. When the bailiff called them back to the courtroom, everything had changed. Lucas walked in holding Tom's hand on one side and Sarah's on the other. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the back wall. More in the hallway outside, visible through the open doors. 97 iron riders, sitting in perfect silence, eyes forward, hands folded. Victoria Chen looked like she might faint. Hendricks, the state attorney, had gone pale, his earlier confidence evaporating. Even Linda Martinez looked stunned. Judge Hartwell took her seat, surveyed the packed courtroom, and banged her gavel once. This court is now in session. Before we continue, I want to address our guests. She looked at Hawk. You've been granted permission to observe. But this is a legal proceeding concerning a minor child. I will not tolerate any interference. Clear? Crystal. Your Honor, Hawk said quietly. Good. Miss Chen, I believe we were about to proceed with your recommendation. Victoria stood, but her usual confidence had crumbled. She looked at the sea of leather-clad witnesses, and her voice shook slightly. Your Honor, as I was saying, the state recommends transfer to Riverside Group Home based on our assessment of long-term outcomes and resource availability. Your Honor, Linda Martinez stood quickly. I'd like to call witnesses to speak to Lucas's current placement and his well-being with the Reeves family. Judge Hartwell nodded. Proceed. Linda turned. I'd like to call Tom Reeves to the stand. Tom walked to the witness box, was sworn in, and sat down. Linda began gently. Mr. Reeves, how long has Lucas been in your care? 18 months, ma'am. Best 18 months of our lives. Can you describe Lucas's state when he first arrived? Tom's voice grew thick. He was broken, quiet, wouldn't make eye contact, flinched if you moved too fast, had nightmares every night, screaming in his sleep, wouldn't eat unless we ate first, like he was afraid there wouldn't be enough food. Several of the iron riders shifted in their seats, recognizing the signs of trauma. And now? Linda asked. Now he's a kid, a real kid. He laughs. He jokes around. He eats 3 meals a day and asks for seconds. He sleeps through the night. He's got friends at school. He's learning to work on cars, and he's damn good at it. Objection. Hendricks stood. Language. Your Honor. Sustained. Mr. Reeves, please watch your language. Sorry, Your Honor. Tom cleared his throat. Lucas is thriving. Anyone with eyes can see it. Linda smiled. Mr. Reeves, I understand you're a military veteran? Yes, ma'am. Army. 2 tours in Iraq. And you're involved with a motorcycle club? The Iron Riders, yes. 20 years now. Can you explain what that organization is? Tom looked at Hawk, who nodded once. We're veterans who found brotherhood after service. We help each other with PTSD, transition to civilian life, job placement. We do charity rides for veteran causes. We volunteer at VA hospitals. He paused. They saved my life when I came home broken. Taught me I still had value, still had purpose. And what does the Iron Riders have to do with Lucas? Tom's voice strengthened. When Sarah and I decided to become foster parents, I told Hawk about it. Told him we were going to love whatever kid came to us like they were our own. He said if we ever needed anything, support, resources, whatever, the brotherhood would be there. He looked at the packed courtroom. Turns out, we need them today. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Linda turned to Judge Hartwell. I'd like to call Marcus Sullivan to the stand. Hawk stood and walked forward, his boots clicking on the courtroom floor. He was sworn in and sat down, his weathered hands folded calmly in his lap. Mr. Sullivan, what is your relationship to the Reeves family? Tom Reeves is my brother. Not by blood, but by choice. 20 years ago, he was going to kill himself. I stopped him, helped him find his way back. He's been family ever since. The courtroom was silent. And Lucas? Lucas is Tom's son. That makes him my family too. But you've never met Lucas, have you? Not until today. But Tom calls me every few months with updates. About Lucas's grades. About him learning to fix cars. About the first time Lucas called him Dad. Hawk's voice grew rough. Family isn't just blood. It's choosing to show up. It's being there when it matters. He looked directly at Judge Hartwell. 97 people dropped everything to be here. Today, Your Honor, took time off work, rode through rain, rearranged their lives, because Tom asked us to show up for his son. Objection. Hendricks jumped up. This is emotional manipulation. Overruled, Judge Hartwell said quietly. She was leaning forward now, actually engaged for the first time. Continue, Mr. Sullivan. Your Honor, I've been part of the Iron Riders for 35 years. We've helped hundreds of veterans transition back to civilian life. We've buried brothers who couldn't handle the weight of what they'd seen. We've pulled each other back from the edge more times than I can count. His voice grew stronger. And the biggest thing we've learned is this. Love is what heals people. Not programs, not facilities, not measurable outcomes on a spreadsheet. Love, family, belonging. He pointed at Lucas. That boy has found what most of us spent years searching for. A place where he belongs. People who choose him every single day. And you're about to take that away. Because some bureaucrat decided a group home is better on paper? Your Honor, Victoria stood. This is completely out of line, Miss Chen. Sit down. Judge Hartwell's voice was steel. She looked at Hawk. Continue. I'm just asking you to see what's right in front of you, Your Honor. Look at that boy. Really look at him. Everyone in the courtroom turned to Lucas. Lucas sat between Tom and Sarah, tears streaming down his face, holding their hands like lifelines. He's not a case file, Hawk said quietly. He's a kid who finally found home. Please don't take that away from him. Hawk stepped down. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Judge Hartwell sat back in her chair, removing her glasses to clean them slowly. Finally, she spoke. Miss Chen, I have a question. Victoria stood nervously. Yes, Your Honor. In your professional assessment, is Lucas in any danger in the Reeves home? No, Your Honor. But, is he being neglected? No, Your Honor. Has there been any indication of abuse, substance use, or unsafe conditions? No, Your Honor. But the issue is long-term resource allocation, and so the only reason you're recommending his removal is because Riverside has better programs on paper? Victoria hesitated. Your Honor, it's not just that. It's about ensuring Lucas has access to Miss Chen. The judge's voice cut through. I asked you a yes or no question. The caseworker's shoulders slumped. Yes, Your Honor. That's the primary reason. Judge Hartwell looked at Lucas again. Then at Tom and Sarah. Then at the 97 people who'd shown up to say one thing. This child matters. She picked up her gavel. I've made my decision. The courtroom held its collective breath. The state's recommendation for transfer is denied. Sarah gasped. Tom's head dropped forward. Lucas didn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Lucas Chen will remain in the care of Tom and Sarah Reeves. Furthermore, Judge Hartwell looked at Victoria. I'm ordering the state to expedite the Reeves adoption application. I want to see their finalized home study and financial assessment on my desk within 30 days, and I want to know exactly what barriers exist to finalizing this adoption. Your Honor, Victoria tried one more time, with all due respect. Miss Chen, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of kids go through this system. Some end up in good places. Many don't. But I have never seen a room full of people show up like this for a child who isn't biologically theirs. She gestured to the Iron Riders. These people don't even know Lucas. But they know Tom and Sarah. And they trust that if Tom and Sarah love this boy, then he's worth fighting for. Her voice grew firmer. I'm not going to be the judge who tears apart a family because a spreadsheet says so. Lucas stays with the Reeves. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel fell. For one frozen second, nobody moved. Then the entire courtroom erupted. Not in cheers, the Iron Riders were too disciplined for that, but in a standing ovation. 97 people rose to their feet as one. hands coming together in thunderous applause. Lucas buried his face in Sarah's shoulder and sobbed. Tom wrapped his arms around both of them, his body shaking with relief and joy. Linda Martinez wiped her eyes, grinning through tears. Victoria Chen gathered her files and walked out quickly, her expression unreadable. Hendricks followed, already on his phone with his supervisor. Judge Hartwell stood and looked at Hawk. Just for a moment, she allowed herself a small smile. Hawk nodded back, a silent acknowledgement between two people who understood that sometimes the system needed a push to do the right thing. As the courtroom emptied, the Iron Riders filed past Lucas's table. One by one, they stopped, some just nodding, others putting a hand on Tom's shoulder, a few speaking quiet words of congratulations. One older woman, her gray hair in a braid and her vest covered in veteran patches, knelt down to Lucas's level. "Hey there, kiddo. Name's Rosie. I've known Tom since before you were born." She smiled. "You've got a good dad there. Take care of him." Lucas, still crying, managed to whisper, "I will." "Good man." She squeezed his shoulder and moved on. When the last of the Iron Riders had filed out, only Tom, Sarah, Lucas, Linda, and Hawk remained in the courtroom. "Thank you," Tom said to Hawk, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to." "You don't have to," Hawk interrupted. "That's what brothers do." He looked at Lucas. "You take care of your folks, okay? They're good people." Lucas nodded, unable to find words. Hawk smiled. "Welcome to the family, kid." Then he turned and walked out, his boots echoing one last time in the empty courtroom. Lucas stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying unsuccessfully to tie his tie. "Dad," he called, "I need help." Tom appeared in the doorway, grinning. He was wearing his only suit, the one he'd bought for his wedding 30 years ago and had worn exactly twice since. "Let me see." He fixed Lucas's tie with practiced hands. "There, looking sharp, buddy." Lucas studied himself in the mirror. He'd grown 2 inches in the past 6 months. His face had filled out now that Sarah made sure he ate regularly. His eyes didn't look haunted anymore. He looked like a normal 12-year-old kid. "You nervous?" Tom asked. "A little," Lucas admitted. "Me too." Sarah called from downstairs. "We need to leave in 5 minutes." The adoption finalization hearing was today. Judge Hartwell had kept her word. The state had expedited the process, completed every assessment, and within 4 months, all barriers had been removed. Tom and Sarah had officially filed to adopt Lucas Chen, and today, a judge would make it permanent. They drove to the courthouse together, Lucas sitting in the back of Tom's truck like always. But this time, he wasn't afraid. This time, he knew how it would end. The hearing was quick, perfunctory. A different judge. This time, Judge Hartwell had recused herself to avoid any appearance of bias. But the outcome was never in doubt. "By the power vested in me by the state, I hereby grant the petition for adoption. Lucas Chen is now legally Lucas Chen Reeves, son of Thomas and Sarah Reeves." The gavel fell. Lucas Chen Reeves. He had a real name now. A real family, forever. Sarah cried. Tom did too, not even trying to hide it. Lucas just smiled the biggest, most genuine smile of his entire life. Outside the courtroom, they found a surprise waiting. The Iron Riders had come back. Not all 97 this time, just a core group of about 20, including Hawk. "Couldn't miss it," Hawk said, shaking Tom's hand. Then he knelt down to Lucas. "Congratulations, kid. You're officially part of the family now." He handed Lucas a small package wrapped in newspaper comics, just like Sarah's birthday presents. Lucas unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather jacket. Small, size for a kid, but real leather with real patches. On the back was embroidered an Iron Riders, patch the eagle with spread wings. Underneath, it said, "Honorary member, Lucas Reeves." Lucas's eyes went wide. "Really? Really?" Hawk said, "You're one of us now. When you're old enough, if you want to ride, we'll teach you. Until then, you wear that with pride." Lucas slipped the jacket on. It fit perfectly. Tom put his arm around Lucas's shoulders. "What do you say, son?" "Son?" The word still made Lucas's heart skip. "Thank you," Lucas said to Hawk. "For everything. For showing up. That's what family does," Hawk said simply. They took a photo outside the courthouse, Tom, Sarah, Lucas in his new jacket, surrounded by 20 Iron Riders on their motorcycles. Someone posted it online later that day. It went viral within hours. 97 bikers surrounded Courtroom to defend a crying foster child judge's reaction, stunned. Everyone. The headline appeared on news sites, blogs, social media. Thousands of comments from people who'd been touched by the story. But Lucas didn't care about any of that. He cared about the smell of motor oil in Tom's garage, where he spent Saturday mornings learning to rebuild carburetors. He cared about Sarah's homemade lasagna on Sunday nights. He cared about the way Tom said, "Good night, son," every single night before bed. He cared about belonging. That evening, Lucas sat at the dinner table, in their house, helping Sarah set out plates while Tom brought food from the kitchen. Normal, mundane, perfect. "Hey, Lucas," Tom said as they sat down. "Your mom and I were talking. We thought maybe this summer we could take a trip, maybe the Grand Canyon. What do you think?" Lucas looked up. "Really? Really?" Sarah said. "A real family vacation." "Family?" Lucas smiled. "That sounds perfect." And it was. Sometimes, the system needs a reminder that children aren't case files. They're human beings who deserve love, stability, and a family willing to fight for them. Lucas Chen is now 14 years old. He maintains a 4 gigapascals and plans to study mechanical engineering. He still works in his dad's garage every Saturday. Tom and Sarah Reeves continue to foster children, having provided temporary homes for 6 more kids since Lucas's adoption. The Iron Riders Motorcycle Club has helped advocate for 23 other foster children in similar situations, attending hearings and providing support to families navigating the system. And Lucas still wears his leather jacket with pride. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.